Alien drill sergeant shocked. Human cadet masters training in 1 hour. The transport ship descended through the violet atmosphere of Training World Delta 9, carrying its latest batch of recruits for the Galactic Defense Initiative. Among the 200 beings crammed into the passenger bay sat Corporal Hyunwoo, the only human in a sea of scales, chitin, and bioluminescent skin. He kept his eyes forward, ignoring the curious stares and whispered comments in a dozen alien languages. The translator implant behind his ear buzzed constantly, feeding him fragments of conversation. Most of it was speculation about whether humans were really as fragile as the rumors suggested. The Vrexian beside him, a hulking creature with 4 arms and rocky hide, leaned over. "You are the human, yes? I am Kroth. They say your species breaks easily. This should be entertaining." Hyunwoo offered a polite smile. "I guess we'll see." The ship touched down with a heavy thud and the rear hatch began to open. Immediately, a voice like grinding metal filled the bay. "On your feet!" "Move, move, move." The recruits scrambled toward the exit, some species faster than others. Hyunwoo jogged down the ramp and fell into formation on the designated marks painted across the tarmac. The gravity here was slightly heavier than Earth standard, maybe 1.2 times, but manageable. Standing before them was drill instructor Vexthor, a Caltharian warrior whose reputation preceded him across 3 sectors. He stood nearly 3 meters tall with 6 limbs ending in razor-sharp claws, and his exoskeleton gleamed like polished obsidian under the twin suns. His mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement or disgust. "I am drill instructor Vexthor," he announced, his voice amplified by the translator network. "For the next 6 cycles, you miserable specimens will be under my care. By the time I am finished with you, you will either be soldiers worthy of the initiative, or you will wash out and return to your worlds in shame." His multifaceted eyes scanned the formation, pausing on Hyunwoo. "Ah, the human. Step forward." Hyunwoo's jaw tightened, but he complied, breaking formation and marching to stand directly before the towering instructor. Vexthor circled him slowly, like a predator examining prey. "I have heard many things about your species. That you come from a death world, that your planet tries to kill you with every breath. But I see before me only soft flesh and brittle bones. Tell me, human, why should I believe you belong here?" "Sir, I'm here to prove I can serve, sir." A clicking sound emerged from Vexthor's throat, the Caltharian equivalent of laughter. "Prove, yes, we shall see. Return to formation." As Hyunwoo stepped back, Vexthor addressed the entire group. "Your first trial begins now. You will complete the standard endurance course. It is 12 kilometers through varied terrain. The current record for completing this course is held by a Vrexian at 47 minutes and 12 seconds. You have 2 hours. Those who fail will be recycled to the next training cycle. Begin." The mass of recruits surged forward toward the course entrance. Hyunwoo moved with them, settling into an easy pace. The course started with flat ground, then transitioned into obstacle walls, water hazards, and climbing nets designed for beings with vastly different physiologies. Around him, various species showcased their natural advantages. The insectoid chittics scurried up vertical surfaces with ease. The aquatic delvins powered through water sections like torpedoes. The heavy-gravity Vrexians simply smashed through obstacles that would have required climbing. Hyunwoo adapted. Where he couldn't outpower, he found efficient routes. Where he couldn't outrun, he maintained steady progress. His body settled into the familiar rhythm of exertion. His breathing controlled, his mind focused. By the halfway mark, several recruits had already fallen behind, their bodies failing under the combined stress of gravity and exertion. Hyunwoo maintained his position in the middle of the pack, neither leading nor lagging. Then came the nightmare section, a stretch of terrain called the Crucible. Mud pits filled with thick, clinging sludge that seemed designed to trap limbs, rope bridges suspended over nothing, walls that shifted and moved. This was where species advantages began to matter less and determination mattered more. Hyunwoo watched a confident chittic freeze on a swaying bridge, its multiple legs a disadvantage as it struggled for balance. He passed it carefully, offering a steadying hand that the creature accepted with grateful chirps. The final 2 kilometers were pure endurance, a steady uphill climb back to the training facility. Hyunwoo's legs burned, his lungs worked overtime in the slightly thinner atmosphere, but he pushed forward. One step, another step. Keep moving. He crossed the finish line at 1 hour, 18 minutes and 43 seconds. Solidly middle of the pack. Adequate. Unremarkable. Vexthor stood at the finish, his expression unreadable. Acceptable human, barely. Hyunwoo simply nodded, too focused on catching his breath to respond. Around him, other recruits continued to arrive, and some didn't arrive at all. The day was far from over. Part 2. The barracks were divided by environmental needs. Hyunwoo found himself in a standard atmosphere section with a handful of other carbon-based oxygen breathers. His bunk was a simple metal frame with a thin mattress. Better than some field deployments he'd heard about, but far from comfortable. He'd just finished stowing his gear when Kroth lumbered over, his rocky face arranged in what might have been a smile. "You did well today, human. Better than I expected. Perhaps you will not break immediately after all." "Thanks, I think." Hyunwoo extended his hand. "Most people just call me Woo." Kroth stared at the hand for a moment before carefully grasping it with one of his massive appendages. The Vrexian's grip could have crushed stone, but he was surprisingly gentle. "I am told humans bond through physical contact. This is your handshake custom, yes?" "That's right. Fascinating. Your species is very strange." Over the next few days, a routine established itself. Wake at dawn. Physical training. Combat drills. Tactical exercises. Equipment maintenance. Study periods. The Galactic Defense Initiative didn't believe in wasting time. Vexthor pushed them relentlessly, his multiple eyes seeming to catch every mistake, every moment of weakness. He was especially harsh on recruits who relied too heavily on their species' natural advantages. "Your claws will break," he screamed at a Chittic who fumbled with a weapon. "Your scales will burn. What happens when you face an enemy that neutralizes your strengths? You become nothing but a liability to your unit." Hyunwoo watched and learned. He noticed that Vexthor's harshest criticism often came before showing the correct technique. The instructor was brutal but fair, and more importantly, he was trying to keep them alive. The human attracted attention despite his best efforts to remain unremarkable. Other recruits watched him during hand-to-hand combat drills, curious about how a species without natural weapons could fight. They saw him adapt techniques meant for claws and use elbows instead. They saw him work around his lack of protective hide by focusing on speed and precision. On the 5th day, Vexthor announced a new challenge during the morning formation. "Today you will face the combat simulator. It is a virtual environment that places you in scenarios you might encounter in actual service. You will fight alone. Your score will be based on objectives completed, enemies neutralized, and most importantly, your survival." He gestured toward a large building at the edge of the training grounds. "Each session lasts 1 hour. The simulation adapts to your performance, growing more difficult as you progress. The current facility record is level 17, held by Instructor Kexalara of the Caltherian Marine Corps. Most recruits reach level 5 or 6 before failing. You will each take your turn throughout the day." The recruits were called alphabetically by species designation. As the human, Hyunwoo would go last. He spent the day watching others emerge from the simulator building. Some came out quickly, looking shaken. Others lasted longer but wore expressions of exhausted defeat. Kroth managed to reach level 8 before a simulated plasma burst took him down, and he emerged looking pleased with himself. "It is very realistic," the Vrexian told Hyunwoo. "I felt the heat, the pain. My mind knew it was false, but my body believed. Be prepared." Finally, as the twin suns began their descent toward the horizon, Vexthor called out, "Recruit Hyunwoo, you're up." The simulator room was stark and white, empty except for a weapons rack and a neural interface chair in the center. A technician, a spindly being with too many joints, gestured him forward. "Sit. The interface will connect to your translator implant. You will feel a momentary disorientation as the simulation loads. Select your loadout from the options provided. When ready, the scenario will begin. Good luck." Hyunwoo settled into the chair and the world dissolved. He found himself standing in the ruins of what looked like a human city, though the architecture was subtly wrong. Smoke rose from collapsed buildings. The sky overhead was the sickly green of a world with a dying atmosphere. A holographic display appeared in his vision, showing objectives and a weapon selection menu. He chose a standard kinetic rifle, a sidearm, and basic combat armor. Nothing fancy. Nothing he didn't know how to use. The first wave came quickly. Simulated enemies, generic hostile targets that looked like a mix of various aggressive species. Hyunwoo took cover behind a ruined wall and began picking them off methodically. breathe, aim, fire, move. Level 1 complete. Level 2 introduced heavier enemies with energy shields. He adapted, aiming for weak points using the environment for tactical advantage. Level 3 added time pressure, a countdown to evacuate civilians from a target building while under fire. He moved faster, more efficiently. Level 4, Level 5, Level 6. Outside the simulator in the observation room, Vex Thor watched the humans' progress on the monitors. Other instructors had gathered, drawn by reports of an unusually long session. "He's at level 9, one of them noted. "Not bad for a first attempt." Vex Thor said nothing, his mandibles clicking thoughtfully. The human's approach was methodical, almost boring in its efficiency. No wasted motion, no dramatic heroics, just constant, steady progress. Level 10, 11, 12. "This is unusual," another instructor murmured. "His heart rate has barely elevated." "Is his biology so different?" "No," Vex Thor replied quietly. "He is focused. Watch his eyes. He is not fighting. He is working." Inside the simulation, Hyun-woo cleared another objective. The scenarios had become complex, requiring him to command simulated squad members, manage resources, and adapt to rapidly changing battlefield conditions. But the core principle remained the same. Assess, decide, act, repeat. He'd stopped thinking about levels or scores. There was only the next target, the next objective, the next problem to solve. Part 3, Level 13 presented Hyun-woo with a hostage situation. Simulated civilians were being held by well-armed enemies in a compound with multiple entry points and limited sightlines. The timer showed 8 minutes to complete the rescue before the hostages would be executed. He spent 30 seconds observing the layout from cover, marking guard positions, identifying patrol patterns. Then he moved. The first guard went down silently to a close-quarters takedown. Hyun-woo dragged the body into shadow and appropriated its heavier weapon. 2 more guards fell before the alarm raised. Then it became a race against time and bullets. He used the chaos to his advantage. While enemies converged on his last known position, he circled through a drainage culvert and came up behind their lines. The hostages were secured with 4 minutes to spare. Level 14. The simulation threw him into a vehicle, a hover transport under heavy fire, with orders to break through an enemy blockade and deliver critical supplies to a besieged outpost. The controls were unfamiliar, designed for a species with different appendages, but he figured it out through trial and error at high speed. In the observation room, more instructors had gathered. Word had spread through the facility that something unusual was happening. The monitors showed the human navigating through hostile fire, his transport taking hits but maintaining course. "He's at 14, someone said, disbelief coloring their translated voice. "How is a human at 14? Vex Thor's compound eyes never left the screen. "He does not fight like a warrior. He fights like a survivor." "What's the difference? A warrior seeks victory. A survivor simply refuses to stop." Level 15 changed everything. Hyun-woo found himself in command of a squad during a full-scale battle, with dozens of enemies, multiple objectives, and failing equipment. The simulation was testing not just combat skills but leadership, resource management, and the ability to make impossible choices. He organized his simulated squad into fire teams, assigned priorities and rotated personnel to maintain effectiveness despite mounting casualties. When ammunition ran low, he called for bayonet charges. When air support was denied, he found alternate routes. When the primary objective became untenable, he adapted to achieve secondary goals. The scenario ended with half his squad dead, but the critical objective secured. The virtual soldiers who survived looked at him with something like respect, despite being nothing more than code and pixels. Level 16 appeared, and the difficulty increased exponentially. Hyun-woo faced an enemy commander who adapted to his tactics, learning from each engagement. The battle became a chess match played with lives and limited resources across urban terrain. He began to use feints, false retreats, and misdirection. He sacrificed territory to preserve forces, then struck at unexpected moments. The enemy commander was intelligent, but it was programmed with known tactics. Hyun-woo started introducing chaos, unpredictability, the human element that no algorithm could fully predict. The timer showed he'd been in the simulator for 52 minutes. Outside, the gathered instructors watched in silence as the human cleared level 16 with less than a minute remaining on the clock. He's going to reach 17, someone whispered. A recruit is going to match Kexalara's record. Vexthor felt something unfamiliar stirring in his thorax. Pride, perhaps, or maybe concern. The human had exceeded every expectation, but there was something unsettling about the cold efficiency on display. This wasn't the first time Hyunwoo had faced life-and-death situations. The Caltherian instructor was certain of it. Level 17 loaded. Hyunwoo found himself alone, equipment damaged, in enemy territory with a single objective marked on his failing HUD. Extract the intelligence and reach the evacuation point. Simple in theory, impossible in practice. The simulation had learned his patterns now. Enemies anticipated his preferred tactics. Ambushes waited at logical routes. His advantages had been systematically stripped away, leaving only will and ingenuity. He went dark, disabling his own tracking systems to avoid being followed. This also meant he couldn't call for support, couldn't coordinate with friendly forces. He was truly alone. Hyunwoo moved like a ghost through the enemy-controlled zone. When he couldn't fight, he hid. When he couldn't hide, he ran. When he couldn't run, he fought with a ferocity that seemed at odds with his methodical approach in earlier levels. He reached the intelligence objective and found it guarded by an entire enemy platoon. Direct assault was suicide. Infiltration was impossible with his damaged equipment. He had 3 minutes before extraction departed without him, so he caused a distraction. Using his remaining explosives, he created a false assault on the opposite side of the compound. While enemies rushed to respond, he simply walked through the front entrance, grabbed the intelligence packet, and walked out. Sometimes the most unexpected tactic was no tactic at all, just audacity. The evacuation point was hot under heavy fire. The transport was lifting off as he arrived, unable to wait any longer. Hyunwoo didn't hesitate. He sprinted across open ground, enemy fire kicking up dirt around his feet, and launched himself at the rising vehicle. His hands caught the landing skid. For a moment he hung there, suspended between success and failure. Then, with a desperate effort, he hauled himself up and into the transport's cargo bay. Level 17 complete. The simulation froze. A display appeared showing his final statistics. Time remaining 4 seconds. Casualties inflicted, 847. Objectives completed, 17 out of 17. Overall performance rating exceptional. Then new text appeared. Level 18 available. Proceed. Hyunwoo stared at the prompt. His body ached in ways that felt real despite the virtual nature of the experience. His mind was sharp, but he could feel fatigue creeping in at the edges. The 1 hour mark had passed 2 minutes ago. He thought about the record he'd just tied. Thought about the expectations and the attention that breaking it would bring. Thought about remaining unremarkable. Then he thought about the soldiers in his simulated squad who had died following his orders. Code and pixels, yes, but they'd felt real enough in the moment. He owed it to those phantom warriors to see how far he could actually go. He selected Proceed. Part 4 Level 18 dropped Hyunwoo into a scenario he immediately recognized as impossible. A space station under siege, failing life support, enemy forces boarding from multiple points, and civilians trapped in the lower decks. He had no squad, limited ammunition, and 15 minutes before the station's reactor went critical. The observation room had grown crowded. Every available instructor on the facility had gathered to watch, along with senior recruits who'd finished their own daily training. The screen showed a human moving through zero-gravity corridors with desperate speed, making split-second decisions that meant life or death for virtual civilians. He should quit, one instructor said. Level 18 is designed to be unwinnable. It's a test of how someone handles inevitable failure. Vexthor's mandibles clicked. He does not know that. Or perhaps he did know and simply didn't care. Hyunwoo moved through the station like a force of nature, sealing breaches, redirecting power, and eliminating enemies with whatever came to hand. When his rifle ran dry, he used the rifle as a club. When that broke, he used improvised weapons scavenged from the environment. He found the civilians huddled in a cargo bay, terrified and waiting for rescue. 43 beings of various species, some injured, all panicking. The timer showed 8 minutes to reactor breach. "Follow me," he commanded through the translator, his voice carrying an authority that transcended species. "Stay close, stay quiet, and you'll live through this." He led them through maintenance tunnels too small for the heavily armored enemy soldiers, through sections that had lost gravity, through corridors filled with smoke and debris. 3 civilians didn't make it. struck down by enemy fire during the final dash to the escape pods. Hyunwoo got the survivors into pods and launched them with 5 seconds to spare before the station exploded in a simulated fireball. He didn't have time to reach a pod himself. The last thing he saw before the simulation ended was the white flash of the reactor going critical. Mission: partial success. 40 civilians saved. Primary operator KIA. The simulation faded. Hyunwoo sat in the interface chair, breathing hard, his body trembling from the neural feedback. The technician stared at him with something like awe in its alien eyes. The technician started, then seemed unable to find words. Nobody attempts 18. It's meant to teach acceptance of failure. Did I fail? Hyunwoo asked. You saved 40 civilians from an impossible situation and only died yourself at the very end. I would call that success. The door to the simulator room opened and Vexthor entered, followed by a crowd of onlookers. The Caltherian instructor approached the chair and looked down at the exhausted human. You exceeded the 1-hour limit, Vexthor said. The session lasted 1 hour, 14 minutes. Sorry, sir, do not apologize. I did not stop you because I wanted to see what you would do. The instructor's mandibles clicked in what Hyunwoo had learned to recognize as approval. You completed level 18, something only one other being has ever achieved in this facility's history. You are aware that it was designed to be impossible? I suspected as much toward the end, sir. Yet you continued. The civilians were counting on me, sir. Simulation or not, I couldn't just quit on them. Something rippled through the crowd of observers, a murmur of translated voices expressing surprise or respect or confusion. Vexthor studied the human for a long moment. Come with me, recruit. The rest of you disperse. Training resumes at dawn. Hyunwoo followed the instructor through the facility to an office he hadn't seen before. The walls were decorated with commendations and weapons from a dozen conflicts. Vexthor gestured to a seat designed for multiple body types and activated a privacy screen. I have reviewed your file, the Caltherian said without preamble. It is remarkably sparse. You enlisted 6 months ago, passed basic aptitude tests, and volunteered for the GDI program. Before that, your history is redacted. Why? I'm not at liberty to discuss that, sir. I am your instructor. You are at liberty to discuss anything I ask about. Hyunwoo met the alien's compound eyes steadily. With respect, sir, my previous service falls under operational security restrictions. I was cleared for GDI training, but the details remain classified. Vexthor's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of agitation. You have combat experience. Real combat, not training exercises. That performance today was not the work of a recruit. It was the work of a soldier who has faced death and learned to dance with it. I've seen action, sir. That's all I can confirm. Human conflicts? Your species was barely aware of galactic civilization until 4 years ago. Earth has never been a peaceful place, sir. We've had plenty of practice fighting each other. The instructor was silent for a moment, processing this. Then he leaned forward, his massive frame making the furniture creak. I need to understand what I'm dealing with, recruit. The other instructors are already talking. You have drawn attention that I cannot deflect. Tomorrow there will be questions. There will be challenges. Other recruits will want to test themselves against you. Some will see you as a threat. I was trying to stay unremarkable, sir. You failed spectacularly. Vexthor's tone carried a hint of dark humor. Here is what will happen. Tomorrow you will participate in standard training. You will not attempt to hide your capabilities, but you will also not show off. You will help your fellow recruits when asked. You will be a soldier, not a celebrity. Understood? Yes, sir. Good, dismissed. Hyunwoo stood and headed for the door. Before he could leave, Vexthor spoke again. One more thing. That decision you made in level 18, to save the civilians even though it meant your death, that was either incredibly brave or incredibly foolish. Maybe both, sir. Indeed. The mark of your species, I think. Dismissed. Hyunwoo returned to the barracks to find it buzzing with activity. Every recruit seemed to be awake, and they all turned to stare as he entered. Croth lumbered over immediately, his rocky face split in a massive grin. You are famous now, Woo. Level 18. The instructors are saying you fought for over an hour without breaking. It was just a simulation, Croth. Just a simulation. I have seen hardened veterans fail at level 10. And you, a human, you reach 18 on your first attempt. The Vrexian's forearms gestured wildly. This is not normal. This is extraordinary. Other recruits crowded around, all talking at once through the translator network. Questions in a dozen languages blended into an overwhelming noise. Hyunwoo felt his exhaustion settling into his bones, the delayed reaction to over an hour of neural combat simulation. "Listen," he said, pitching his voice to Carrie. "I got lucky. The simulation presented scenarios I'd trained for. That's all. Tomorrow we all go back to learning. I'm nobody special." But he could see in their alien eyes that they didn't believe him. The human had become something other than just another recruit. He'd become a measuring stick, a challenge, a symbol of something they couldn't quite name but recognized instinctively. Part 5. The next morning began with the standard formation, but the atmosphere had changed. Recruits who had previously ignored Hyunwoo now watched his every move. When Vex Thor appeared for morning inspection, even he seemed to carry himself differently, as if aware that his training platoon had suddenly become the focus of facility-wide attention. "Today's exercise," the Caltherian announced, "will be squad-level tactical operations. You will be divided into teams of 10 and assigned objectives in the training range. Your performance will be evaluated on communication, coordination, and completion of objectives. Squad leaders will be chosen based on previous performance metrics." Vex Thor's eyes found Hyunwoo immediately. "Recruit Hyunwoo, you will lead Squad 3. A ripple of reaction went through the formation, some recruits clicking or chirping or expressing surprise in their native languages. Hyunwoo simply nodded. "Yes, sir." The squads were assembled with intentional diversity. Squad 3 consisted of 2 Vrexians, including Kroth, 3 Chittics, 2 Delvins, a gaseous being named Whirlstream who required a containment suit, and 2 species Hyunwoo hadn't worked with before, a plant-based collective intelligence called Thornweave, and a crystalline entity designated as Prism. They gathered at their assigned staging area, all 9 of them looking at their human squad leader with varying degrees of curiosity or skepticism. Hyunwoo studied each of them, mentally cataloging their capabilities based on what he'd observed over the past week. "Right," he said. "First thing, this is a team. I don't care what you did in the simulator or how tough your species is supposed to be. Out here we succeed together or we fail together. Everyone clear?" A chorus of affirmatives in multiple languages, filtered through translators. "Good. Let's go over our objectives and start planning." The mission was straightforward on paper. Infiltrate a hostile area, gather intelligence from 3 separate locations, and extract without being detected by automated defenses. In practice, it required coordinating very different beings with different strengths across complex terrain. Hyunwoo listened to his squad members, asking questions about their capabilities and limitations. The Chittics could climb and scout. The Delvans could move through water channels. Kroth and his fellow Vrexian provided heavy support if things went wrong. Whirlstream could slip through small spaces in gaseous form. Thornweave could interface with organic security systems. Prism could refract light for basic camouflage. "We're going to use a 3-team approach," Hyunwoo explained, sketching in the dirt with a stick. "Stealth team, support team, and reserve. We hit the objectives simultaneously to minimize exposure time." "Questions?" One of the Chittics raised a limb. "Why do you place yourself in reserve?" "You are squad leader. Should you not lead the primary assault? Leadership isn't about being first through the door. It's about putting the right people in the right positions. You can climb better than me, so you're on stealth team. I'll coordinate from a position where I can support any team that runs into trouble." The mission began and Squad 3 moved out. Hyunwoo watched his teams execute their assignments with a mix of pride and tension. The Chittics and Prism infiltrated the first objective point with practiced ease. The Delvins reached the second location, through an underwater approach that bypassed most defenses. Thornweave interfaced with the organic components of the third location's security. Everything was going according to plan until an unexpected patrol appeared, not part of the programmed scenario. Vex Thor had thrown in a variable, testing how the squads would adapt. "Contact," one of the Chittics reported. "Automated sentries, patrol pattern not in the briefing. All teams hold position," Hyunwoo ordered. "Kroth, can you draw their attention without triggering a full alert?" "Yes, I will make noise at the western approach." "Good. Stealth team, use that distraction to complete your objective. Support team, be ready to extract under fire if needed." The plan worked. The sentries diverted to investigate Kroth's distraction, while the other teams completed their objectives. Squad 3 extracted cleanly with all intelligence gathered and 0 casualties. At the debriefing, Vexithor addressed all the squads. "Most of you completed your objectives. Some of you did so with more finesse than others. Squad 3, he looked at Hyunwoo, completed all objectives with zero detection and adapted to an unexpected variable. This is acceptable performance. Coming from the Caltherian, that was high praise. Over the following days, a pattern emerged. Hyunwoo excelled at tactical coordination, using each species' natural abilities to maximum advantage. But it was his approach to training itself that began to influence the other recruits. He didn't compete against them. He trained with them. When a Chittick struggled with weapon maintenance, Hyunwoo spent his free time helping it adapt tools to its limb structure. When a Delvan couldn't complete a climbing obstacle, he worked with it to find alternative approaches. When Kroth wanted to improve his marksmanship, Hyunwoo ran shooting drills with him every evening. Why do you help them? Vexthor asked one evening, observing Hyunwoo assist a struggling recruit with combat stances. They are your competition for final rankings. They're my future comrades, sir. If we deploy together, I want them at their best. Their success is my success. This is a very human perspective. Maybe. Or maybe it's just common sense. The Caltherian made his clicking sound. I'm beginning to understand why your species has interested the Council so much. You approach warfare from an entirely different philosophy. How so, sir? Most species that achieve spaceflight do so by unifying their world first. They turn their aggressive instincts outward, toward exploration and expansion. But humans? You achieved spaceflight while still fighting amongst yourselves. You brought your conflicts to the stars. That's one way to look at it, Hyunwoo acknowledged. The other way to look at it is that your species learned to cooperate despite differences, not because of unity. Every human soldier carries the knowledge that yesterday's enemy might be today's ally. This makes you adaptable in ways most species are not. Hyunwoo had never thought about it quite that way, but Vexthor wasn't wrong. Earth's history was written in wars between nations, ideologies, and cultures. Humans had practiced coalition warfare with former enemies so many times it had become second nature. The third week of training brought the final evaluation, a complex war game that would pit squads against each other in contested objectives. Squad 3 had become a cohesive unit by this point, the various species learning to work together with surprising efficiency. They were halfway through the exercise when everything changed. Alarms began blaring across the facility. Real alarms, not part of any training scenario. Vexthor's voice came over the facility-wide comm system. All personnel, this is not a drill. We have a hostile incursion in Sector 7. Training staff report to command. All recruits return to barracks immediately. The recruits looked at each other in confusion and growing alarm. Hostile incursion meant actual enemies, not simulated threats. The training facility was supposed to be secure, protected by layers of defense systems and orbital platforms. Move, Hyunwoo ordered his squad. Back to barracks, double time. As they jogged back, explosions echoed in the distance. Smoke began to rise from the eastern section of the facility. Whatever was happening, it was serious and it was close. The barracks had become chaos. Recruits from multiple species crowded around information screens, trying to understand what was happening. The facility's defensive systems were engaged, but something had breached the outer perimeter. Vexthor appeared in the barracks doorway, his usually composed demeanor replaced by focused urgency. Listen well. We have raiders, likely a pirate faction looking to steal equipment or take hostages for ransom. Command is organizing a response, but several instructor units are off-world on exercises. We are under strength. He paused, his compound eyes scanning the assembled recruits. I need volunteers. You are not soldiers yet, but you have training. The raiders are pushing toward the armory and the civilian staff quarters. We need bodies to reinforce defensive positions. Silence filled the barracks. These were recruits barely through half their training cycle. This wasn't what they'd signed up for, not yet. Hyunwoo stepped forward. I'll go, sir. Kroth was next. And I. Then one of the Chitticks from Squad 3. Then Prism. Then more recruits, dozens of them, stepping forward despite their fear. They'd been training to become soldiers. Now they would find out if that training meant anything. Vexthor's mandibles clicked with approval. Arm yourselves from the training lockers. Live ammunition. Stay in your squads. Follow orders exactly. This is not simulation. If you die here, you die. Understood? A ragged chorus of affirmatives. Then move. Squad 3 assembled in full combat gear, weapons loaded with actual rounds instead of training markers. Hyunwoo checked each member, ensuring they were ready. Kroth's massive hands trembled slightly as he gripped his heavy plasma rifle. The Chittics chittered nervously among themselves. "Hey," Yunwu said, getting their attention. "We've trained for this. Trust your training, trust each other, and we'll get through it. I need you all focused." Part 6. The aftermath of battle was somehow worse than the fighting itself. Medical teams moved through the defensive positions, treating wounded and collecting the dead. 17 recruits hadn't made it. Another 32 were injured badly enough to require extended medical care. The facility had held, but the cost had been steep. Squad 3 gathered in a quiet corner of their barracks, exhausted and processing what they'd just experienced. Kroth sat with his head in his hands, all forearms trembling. One of the Chittics had curled into a defensive ball and wouldn't respond to anyone. Even Hyunwoo felt the weight of it settling on his shoulders. "I killed someone today," Kroth said quietly. "Not in simulation. Really killed them. I saw their body burning and I just kept firing." "You did what you had to do," Hyunwoo replied. "They were trying to kill us, trying to get to the civilians. You protected people who couldn't protect themselves. Does it always feel like this? Yes? Anyone who says it doesn't is lying or broken." The Vrexian looked up at him with something like understanding. "You have done this before. Really done it, not in training. I can see it in how you moved, how you commanded. Who are you really, Wu?" Before Hyunwoo could answer, Vexthor entered the barracks. The Caltherian instructor looked older somehow, wearied by the day's events. But his voice remained steady. "All personnel attention. Formal debriefing will occur tomorrow, but I wanted to address you now. Today you faced your first real combat. Some of you froze. Some of you ran. Many of you stood and fought with courage I did not know you possessed. You are no longer just recruits. You have been tested in fire and proven yourselves." He paused, his compound eyes finding individuals in the crowd. 17 of your comrades fell today. Remember them. Honor them by becoming the soldiers they will never have the chance to be. Dismissed. The instructor started to leave, then turned back. "Recruit Hyunwoo with me." Hyunwoo followed Vexthor to his office once again. This time, several other senior instructors waited there. Along with a holographic presence he recognized as Commander Thexlar, the facility's overall commander. "Recruit Hyunwoo," the commander began, her six-eyed gaze studying him through the hologram. "Your performance today was exceptional. Multiple instructors report that your squad suffered minimal casualties, despite being at one of the hottest engagement points. Your tactical decisions were sound. Your leadership was evident. I am told this is consistent with your simulator performance and general training record. Thank you, ma'am. Don't thank me yet. I'm about to make your life complicated." She gestured and a file appeared in holographic form, heavily redacted sections visible as black bars across the text. "Your records indicate prior military service with Earth's armed forces, but the details are classified at levels even I cannot access without clearance from your planetary government. This is unusual." Hyunwoo said nothing, maintaining a neutral expression. "I am not a fool, recruit. You moved today like a veteran combat soldier. Your weapon handling, your tactical awareness, your lack of hesitation when engaging targets, these are not the actions of someone who learned everything in 6 months of basic training. So I will ask you directly, what experience did you bring to this program that your file does not reflect?" The room fell silent. Hyunwoo considered his options. He could refuse to answer, cite operational security, and hope the matter dropped, or he could trust these beings who had just fought alongside his fellow recruits to defend their facility. "Permission to speak freely, ma'am." "Granted. Before humanity joined the Galactic Defense Initiative, we had our own conflicts. I served in several of them. The details are classified because they involve ongoing security concerns on Earth. I enlisted in the GDI program after my unit was deactivated following first contact. I wanted to continue serving, but in a way that helped humanity find its place among the galactic community." Commander Thexlar studied him for a long moment. "How much combat experience?" 6 years, ma'am. Multiple deployments across different environments and threat types. You are what, 26 standard years old? 27, ma'am. So you've been a soldier since you were barely an adult? And you came to us pretending to be a fresh recruit?" There was no anger in her voice, just curiosity. "I am a fresh GDI recruit, ma'am. Everything I knew about warfare was Earth-based human-on-human conflict. I came here to learn how to fight as part of a multi-species force. The simulator proved I still have much to learn about galactic-scale operations." Vexthor clicked his mandibles. He is not wrong, Commander. His tactical thinking is sometimes limited by human-centric assumptions. His first simulator attempt showed clear adaptation patterns as he learned to account for different species' capabilities. If he were truly an expert in galactic warfare, he would have cleared 20 levels easily. Perhaps. The commander deactivated the holographic file. Regardless, we now face a decision. You have exceeded recruit level expectations significantly. Normally, we would accelerate your training and push you toward early graduation. However, your presence has become valuable in another way. The other recruits look to you. They learn from you. You make your entire unit better. I'm not sure I understand, ma'am. I want you to continue with your training cycle, but in an expanded capacity. You will remain a recruit officially, but you will also assist instructors with combat training, tactical exercises, and squad leadership development. Essentially, you will help us train the others while completing your own certification requirements. Yunwoo considered this. It meant more work, more responsibility, and definitely more attention. It was the opposite of staying unremarkable. But after today, after seeing his squad fight together and knowing he'd helped prepare them for that moment, he couldn't say no. I'll do it, ma'am. Good. Dismissed. The remaining weeks of training passed in a blur. Hyunwoo found himself in a strange hybrid role, still a recruit in official status but effectively a junior instructor for tactical operations. He ran simulation exercises, led field training, and helped species learn to coordinate with each other. The real surprise was how much he learned in return. Each species brought unique perspectives on warfare. The Chittics taught him about three-dimensional battlefield awareness. The Delvins showed him fluid tactics that adapted like water around obstacles. Kroth and the other Vrexians demonstrated the value of overwhelming force applied at decisive moments. Squad 3 had become legendary in their training cycle. The squad that had held the line during the Raider attack, that had fought like veterans despite being barely trained recruits. Other squads wanted to know their secrets, wanted to train like them, wanted to learn from the human who'd led them. Hyunwoo tried to explain that there were no secrets, just basic principles applied consistently. Trust your team, know their strengths, communicate clearly, adapt to circumstances. Simple concepts that every military in human history had learned the hard way. On the final day of the training cycle, the surviving recruits assembled for graduation. Of the 200 who had arrived months ago, 163 remained. Some had washed out. Some had been injured too severely in the raid to continue. 17 had died. Commander Thexler presided over the ceremony, presenting each graduate with their certification and assignment. When she called Hyunwoo forward, the entire assembly erupted in cheers and various species-specific sounds of approval. Corporal Hyunwoo, she said, you came to us as a mystery. You remain one in many ways, but you have proven yourself a soldier of the Galactic Defense Initiative and, more importantly, a leader who brings out the best in those around you. Your first assignment will be with the GDI's 7th Tactical Response Group, where you will serve as a squad leader. Congratulations. She handed him his certification, and then added quietly, make us proud, human. Your species has much to teach the galaxy about courage, adaptability, and the refusal to quit even when quitting makes sense. Show them what humanity can be. I'll do my best, ma'am. As the ceremony concluded and graduates celebrated with their squads one final time before shipping out to various assignments, Vex Thor approached Hyunwoo. The Caltherian instructor extended one of his limbs, and what he'd learned was the human gesture of respect. Hyunwoo shook it firmly. I was wrong about you, Vex Thor said. When you first arrived, I saw soft flesh and brittle bones. I saw weakness waiting to break. I did not see the warrior underneath. I did not understand that your species forged itself in fire long before reaching for the stars. You weren't entirely wrong, sir. Humans are fragile compared to most species here. We do break easily. We just have a habit of putting ourselves back together and coming back for more. That is your strength. Not that you don't break, but that breaking doesn't stop you. The instructor's mandibles clicked in approval. I watched you in that simulator, fighting for over an hour, pushing past every reasonable limit. I saw you in real combat, standing your ground when retreat would have been justified. You didn't fight like you were trying to survive. You fought like you'd already decided survival was optional as long as the mission succeeded.